Hey friends, so I've been thinking about some things, and it's been spurred on by a lot of recent announcements that have just come out of like the comic book movie space, and it's something that's been on my mind for a while, which is that I think there's the downside of building up hype, which is that we get announced projects way before they're ready. I mean, there's a couple of recent big ones that have really sort of put this in my mind. Most notably, Blade. Mahershala Ali has revealed that he is officially released from contract on Blade, and that guy did like sword training for a year, ready to do that role, and he's not doing it anymore. That movie was supposed to come out a few different times over the past few years and never actually did, which is a real shame. It's also been announced that David Jenkins, the creator of Our Flag Means Death, he submitted a pilot script for DC's Booster Gold, which is now also not officially going ahead. That one's also been dropped. So, and that's on top of The Authority from DC, which has also seemed to have disappeared from their initial slate. And then, of course, there's Vision Quest and Ironheart from Marvel Studios through Disney Plus, which just seem to have been sort of sneaked out with very little fanfare, because Marvel's now changing tactics and changing how it's doing its streaming shows. Like, if you look at their upcoming streaming shows, they're either quite self-contained, like Daredevil Born Again, or they're not part of the main MCU. They're like side universes, things like X-Men 97 and Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. And we've also seen this with other big franchises like Star Wars, Star Trek, all these things where it's like, we're thinking of doing this, we're thinking of doing this big thing, and it doesn't happen. And even the last series of Doctor Who had a similar sort of thing where it's like Russell T Davies was like, I have a 3-year plan for Doctor Who, and then due to a variety of behind the scenes issues, that didn't happen, and people leave and the fans get upset, and it reflects in the final product. The final products that we actually get, we've seen this a lot with Marvel, we can see the flaws in it now, whereas before they never used to clue us in as much. Well, back in the day, we wouldn't know that a film was being worked on until it was announced, until it was done. I mean, things like Superman Lives or Justice League Mortal, these big, almost made movies that were, there's a lot of stuff about them that's been explored about them. And I've mentioned both of them on my podcast before. But most of that came out after the fact, like when these projects fell through. I don't even think they were properly announced at the time. Like, I was paying attention to this stuff in 2008, and I don't remember hearing about Justice League Mortal 2007, 2008. I definitely didn't hear anything about Superman Lives in the 90s. Definitely not. And Nicolas Cage was a big movie star, and the Batman movies were doing really well. So you'd think if they were doing a Superman movie, that would have made some headlines. No. So I think, and plans change. Like, Shang-Chi was supposed to have a sequel. There's supposed to be a third Doctor Strange. And all this stuff changes, and stuff gets put up in the air, and stuff gets shifted around, and things that they have planned don't happen for a variety of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why things might not happen, why things might not go the way you think they will, and why projects might not work. Like, Armor Wars is one that was announced by Marvel, but that always felt like a kind of, oh, this is one we're working towards. And I've kind of got a similar worry now about Ghost Rider, thinking about it, that like, even though they've got Ryan Reynolds attached, even though they've got Sean Levy attached, we've seen this happen before with comic book movies. We've seen things, even with stars and directors attached, fall through. Like, Flash went through 6 different directors and multiple scripts before we got the travesty that actually was. And by the time that came out, the entire DCEU had changed several times, and it was still changing while that movie was being made. Like, apparently that movie shot 3 different endings all based on different heads of DC and what they different heads of Warner Brothers and what they wanted to do at the time. So, things are very up in the air. And this is why, I've done a podcast episode, which I've done it as a blog first, and it's coming out as a podcast episode eventually. I've got it recorded. I just need to do the video for it. I've been so busy with real world stuff, which is why the podcast is kind of on a break. And it's me coming up with my own idea of how I would have built the MCU if Marvel had all the characters in the early 2000s, and what I would have done if I'd have been the Kevin Feige. And it's one of those, even the best laid plans, things can go wrong. Things can change, actors become available, all sorts of things. I'm thinking back to a good example of this, two big examples I can think of that suffered and also didn't, and they're both mid-2000s TV shows. The first one, Heroes. Heroes I've spoken about before. It was the first season, solid. Tim Kring worked on that for 2 years. Came out, it's brilliant. It's a very nice, solid story. Gets picked up for a second season. He doesn't have as much of a clue as where to go next. So it does go in different ways, and they do work on it. They do season 2, but then season 2 gets cut short by the writer's strike, so they have to change the ending. Things change, eventually kind of limps to the finish. The other, and I just saw a big YouTube retrospective on this as well, which is why it's fresh in my mind. Lost had so many things go wrong while they were making it. One of the big ones was they didn't really have a plan going forward, and they should have had a plan. But when they did get a plan, that even fell by the rails, because the character of Echo was meant to be a really big character. He's introduced in season 2. They start doing stuff with him. The actor left. The actor decided to quit. He left partway through season 3. This was meant to be one of their big key flagship characters. He was supposed to have a lot of stuff going on with him, and lots of... He was going to be one of the big drivers of the plot. And then he left. And then there's other shows where the opposite happens, where they'll start making stories for a character that maybe they didn't plan on being such a huge name, but it's just because the characters resonated with audiences, or a dynamic has resonated with audiences. There's plenty of shows where some of the best characters aren't introduced until season 2, season 3. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Spike doesn't appear until season 2 and goes on to become one of the most prominent characters in the entire franchise. And one of the best characters in the whole franchise. I'm going off on a tangent, so let's kind of relate it back to the MCU. The MCU, the DCU, they've both announced lists of projects, a whole load, we've got these years-long plans, but then things come along and upset them, because you can't get a script ready, or an actor becomes unavailable, or for some reason, something happens that it just doesn't work. And with Marvel, the big prominent example, what happened with Jonathan Majors, that actor, you had to drop him because of some bad things he did, and then you have to completely repivot everything, and then of course throw in COVID and movies that maybe you were setting up to be a big part of the franchise, maybe not doing so well at the box office. And Marvel has kind of worked around that before. The second Thor movie kind of got reappraised off the back of Endgame, because Endgame kind of linked to it. Whether they'll do that for things like the Marvels, I'm really not sure at this point. They seem to be very much chasing the big successes, and it might not even be coming from Marvel. It might be coming from Disney executives, but it's such a mess, and it becomes a kind of, we have to announce this, that we're working on it, because fans, and most importantly shareholders, need to know so that they can back it. But if that plan falls apart, what was the point in announcing it in the first place? You've just let the fans and your shareholders, which we know are the ones you really care about, down. So is it worth it?